I listened with interest to the debate so far, and many similar debates over the past number of months. I think we all recognise one thing: unless the opposition feels that the government is repressive, that's not conscious of the need to observe civil liberties, the reverse is the case. The government are as alert as anybody else here to the fact that it is unfortunate that we have to move to a situation of restricting people's rights, restricting people's movements, because of the challenge of the virus. Now, to my mind, there's no central ground there. We either take it on or we don't take it on. In the first instance, I think government was hoping that patriotism would work, that appealing to the general public would work, and it did to a point. But the point is this now, that it is now the government are now being blamed for not succeeding. And there's a complete and absolute failure to recognise that other governments all over the globe have been in the same situation, have faced the same problems, and with no better results than here, and in fact some with very, very much worse results. I think we need to recognise one or two things. It is true that about 50% of the people strongly support every step taken to restrict the forward march of the virus, and have made huge sacrifices themselves for very obvious reasons. But there are other people, and for instance, the graph that was shown of the one person who infected 54 other people as a result of that particular person's irresponsibility was sufficient illustration to me to show to everybody what we had to do. And I'm sure everybody here has made sacrifices. I'm sure everybody in this House has restricted their own movements to the best of their ability and tried to avoid crowds, avoid interaction, practice best practice, hygiene practices and so on. And as a result of that, hopefully, will continue to succeed. However, to those who say, that the testing system, the tracing system is broken down, and at the same time hold out the example of South Korea as the utopia in that area. In South Korea, they have approximately 1/4 of the resources that we have in this country dealing with the virus. But the difference is this: they have a different attitude to the law, on the recommendations, and they embrace that. And I can understand how in this country we're a bit more suspicious. But if we're going to defeat the virus, if we're going to win that battle, we have to make more sacrifices. Because if we don't do it in the next month or 6 weeks, we're going to have another problem, and nobody has mentioned it at all. And that's this: the frontline workers who are in the battlefield at the present time are there day and night, 24/7, week after week, have been doing it for the last 7-8 months. And at some stage, they're going to get very seriously brassed off at the fact that they have to make those sacrifices, that they have to take those risks on a daily basis, and that some people feel that there should be no restriction at all. And some people breach the rules and go back to where we were. And some people will again trust upon those emergency services to continue working in the face of insurmountable odds. Now, I don't want to identify any particular group. That's not my job to do. I try to do my best, and I'm sure everybody in this House tries to do their best to observe the rules and regulations. But I cannot understand for the life of me how groups of people could converge together in whatever mode or mood it was over the last 2 months without knowing what the consequences are. And the consequences are now showing up and accelerating, and that was always going to be the case. Much has been said about the lack of investment in health services in this country as in another effort to blame the government for what's happened. Well, whether we like it or not, we're the second or third highest spender on health services in the OECD, and that's a well-documented fact. And there's no use saying that's not true, we don't agree with that. It's a fact. So maybe we're not spending the money in the right way. Maybe we're not observing in the right way. Maybe we're not all responding in the right way. But for whatever reason, the money is being made available. But there's another issue. And this issue, Corla, is a serious one. This country has invested something like 18 billion in attempting to combat this particular threat. This is the single biggest threat that this country, or any other European country, or any country globally, has had to face in the last 150 years. And sadly, it keeps coming back. And sadly and unfortunately, people start pointing the fingers in one direction or another and heaping blame on somebody else. The fact of the matter is simply this: we have to all recognise we all have a role to play, we all have a responsibility. And I have repeatedly said, both within my own party and outside, appeal to people out of their own patriotism to recognise and ask themselves the question: if I do what I'm proposing to do, do I create a possibility of the virus being transferred by somebody else to me, or by me to somebody else? That's a serious question. And if we involve ourselves in congregations, and many people do so, notwithstanding the circumstances in which we're operating, and continue to do so, we have to ask ourselves, are we contributing to the defeat of the virus, or are we doing otherwise? So we have a choice. And my belief is that we could voluntarily achieve the same results as these restrictions are going to achieve, and the financial supports, by simply voluntarily adopting the best methods that we're advised to do by the health experts, by all the experts who have given of their time and their energy and their experience. I would say at this stage, Corla, it falls to us, the population in general, not just a group, not just a social group, not just a class group, but everybody, to observe, and by doing so, to be able to bring the virus to a halt and give space and time. Otherwise, we will see the spectacle of bodies being built up in hospitals and morgues and carted across the country, like happened in Central Europe at the beginning of the pandemic. Thank you.